A late November stock market shocker. Supply chains threaten to play Christmas Grinch. And American pain at the pumps. Everything old is new again.
It's the economy, stupid.
This week, what's ahead for you and both sides of how the economy is shaping the country and the political races to come. The economy as a political issue in the midterm elections. What do you say about that?
Oh, geez.
In many American cities, crime is on the rise after calls to defund the police. If anyone is trying to portray this as a successful defund the police effort, that's not how you see it.
Not at all. Our community wants to be safe.
This week, we're in Denver, where they're trying out an effort to add support for police. A new COVID variant sparks a new global concern, even some panic.
Every time we have an outbreak, whether it's Ebola or polio or Zika, we panic and we throw all of our resources at it.
Billions and billions of dollars have gone toward ongoing preparedness so that when an emergency happens, we're not running around with our hair on fire, as we seem to do. How do you solve that problem? Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. It's been 3 decades since a presidential race was won based largely on the slogan, "It's the economy, stupid." And once again, a troubled economy has become a major driver in U.S. politics. Americans are struggling with a pandemic shutdown hangover, mind-boggling inflation, shocking gas and grocery prices, and shortages of both workers and products. Today in our cover story, straight talk from 2 experts with opposing views on a lot of topics, but agreement that we're not close to out of the woods yet. Back in 1992, there was a recession, and Bill Clinton was running to unseat President George H.W. Bush. Clinton advisor James Carville made the economy the linchpin of the campaign, coining the phrase, "the economy, stupid," which he later explained in an interview.
In 92, we thought the economy should be the filter through which everything we did went. What I was trying to do was get the campaign more focused, get the people in the campaign more focused, and it was like, it's the economy, stupid.
Clinton won. Today, nearly 30 years later, the economy is again shaping up to be a political game changer. Polls show the economy was the top issue on voters' minds in the recent upset in the Virginia governor's race.
All righty, Virginia, we won this thing!
In a state that has far more registered Democrats, the Republican Glenn Youngkin somehow beat the Democrat, former Governor Terry McAuliffe. But to whose advantage will the economy prove to be in the 2022 congressional elections? And more importantly, what's the outlook for your personal finances?
It's a mixed bag. There's a lot to be very excited about. The economy is growing quickly, but it's coming out of a very deep hole. And the recovery from the pandemic-induced recession has been nothing short of chaotic.
We seem to be plateauing at levels that are still well below where we were pre-pandemic, at the same time that inflation is at some of the highest levels that we've observed in recent decades.
We get dueling assessments from Tyler Goodspeed, who headed up the White House Council of Economic Advisors under President Trump, and Wendy Edelberg, once the top economist at the Congressional Budget Office. Tyler, when I say supply chain, which is something I think most Americans hadn't spent much time at all thinking about until fairly recently, what thoughts come to your mind?
I think the pressures are going to persist for the next few quarters and perhaps a bit beyond. Some of the policy choices that have been made that I think have exacerbated some of the labor shortages and increased demand at the same time that supply remains somewhat constrained.
Specifically to supply chain, what do you see in the next 4 to 6 months?
If we're just talking about the container ships, we need resolution all the way across that system. This is a near-term problem. This is a 3-month problem, a 6-month problem.
Tyler, do you think the supply chain issues overall were largely just entirely unavoidable, or do you see that different policies would have or could have mitigated some of this?
I think the continuation of enhanced federal unemployment insurance benefits had a probably modest effect, but nonetheless a net negative effect on the return to work of a lot of American workers. In July, we had the rollout of the new child tax credit, the design of which, at the margin, discourages the return to work. Policy has certainly exacerbated some of these supply side problems that were there already present.
I think we actually now have a whole lot of evidence in hand that the expiration of the unemployment insurance benefits did very little in aggregate to spur more people to come back into the labor market. But one reason why we know that it's not U.S. fiscal policy that has driven these supply constraints is that they're happening globally. We're seeing supply constraints in Asia, we're seeing supply constraints in the UK, we're seeing supply constraints in Australia, we're seeing inflationary pressure across the globe.
We had become what most people consider energy independent, I think starting around 2017 or 2018 or so. No longer are we. And we are now asking or talking with Russia, Saudi Arabia, and OPEC nations about their output to try to help ease pressure on our gas prices. What's going on with energy and what can we expect in the near future?
So I would still characterize us as largely energy independent. We have actually an enormous capacity to ramp up our own oil and natural gas production in this country. And I think that if we see oil prices and natural gas prices remain elevated for any longer than what we've already seen, I would fully expect our production to start to respond and respond pretty quickly.
Tyler?
I agree with Wendy that historically the U.S. domestic energy production has been pretty nimble. I think that has been throttled to a certain extent in recent months because unfriendly policy is staring them in the face.
What's that?
So that's first of all competition down the road from heavily subsidized non-fossil fuel-based sources of energy. So in the near term, I think this could be an adverse energy supply shock, not like the 1970s, but probably more than we've seen in a few decades.
Tyler, looking ahead, going into Christmas, there may be a significant number of vaccine mandate-related retirements and firings. What do you see as the impact of that on our nation and the cost of that?
We're actually still 5 million jobs short of where we were in February 2020. We're also 8 million jobs short of where we ought to be or would have been if we had continued at the pre-pandemic pace of jobs growth. So if I were in policy now, I would be focusing on measures to incentivize return to employment as quickly as possible so that we can keep that labor market recovery on track.
People are scared of the pandemic, and the more we can get people vaccinated, the less scared people will be. And so I think worrying about how vaccine mandates will constrain labor supply misses something that I think is quite significant on the other side of the ledger.
The economy as a political issue in the midterm elections. What do you say about that?
The economy is always a political issue, so there's nothing particularly surprising there.
Does that help or hurt one side or the other, do you think, where we are now if it stays about the same?
Oh, geez, I'm going to ask Tyler to answer.
Okay. I think it's a net negative for the party that occupies the White House and has majorities or effective majorities in both houses of Congress.
All right, let me take a shot at this. Acknowledging that there's a huge amount of uncertainty, it is quite possible that a year from now, we will have largely recovered from the pandemic, knock on something, and we will have logged a bunch of quarters of very strong growth. We may well be looking forward to a slowing as the economy has to have a glide path back toward what is a reasonable state of growth.
What's something significant economically that you think was done right under the Trump administration? Something very important that comes to mind?
I think the 2017 tax law was absolutely pivotal in transitioning us from what had been a historically slow economic recovery, with historically slow real income growth to a state of affairs that on the eve of the pandemic, in 2019 alone, we observed real income gains for the typical American household that were more in 1 year than in the entire 16 years through 2016.
I do think one of the most extraordinary and positive things that happened in that 4-year span is that policymakers generally allowed the economy and pushed the economy to grow quite fast in a way that actually worried me somewhat at the time, but turned out that we were able to grow that quickly without spurring really unwanted inflation. All of those great benefits of strong growth, I would pin far more on monetary policy and what Congress was doing with defense and non-defense spending than anything having to do with the Tax Act.
Is there something very important and critical you can point to that has been done under President Biden that's been positive for the economy?
Oh, wow. So I think much of what was in the American Rescue Plan was very, very positive for the economy. I think it provided a significant amount of fiscal support to ensure that we would have a strong recovery.
One of the good things about the relief package was the funding and support it provided for rolling out some of these, for rolling out vaccine distribution, and for helping schools to safely reopen.
When looking at the COVID time period, a Gallup poll says we recently reached a new high in terms of people mentioning an economic issue as the top problem facing the U.S., 26%. Ahead on Full Measure, who's responding to some police calls instead of the police? Around the country, violent crime is up in major cities. Police agencies are short-staffed, and some activists are still calling to defund the police. One place where that dynamic is in play is Denver, where we recently checked out a new program that sends social workers instead of police on some emergency calls. A double shooting in Washington, D.C. Surveillance video captures the alleged gunman. Crimes are on the heels of a 6-year-old girl fatally shot and a man killed by a stray bullet on a walk with his wife. Amid the summer crime wave, Police Chief Robert Conte holds a remarkable news conference.
The reality is we have a shrinking workforce. I have a definitive amount of resources, 200 and some officers less this year than what I had last year.
Exactly 1 year earlier, with D.C. homicides hurtling toward a startling 16-year high, the City Council slashed police funding by $15 million and froze hiring. Urban areas across the nation are reporting similar challenges. Fewer police, more crime, calls to defund. When we recently visited Denver, Colorado, police officials told us they were down 140 officers with emergency calls on the rise. Here they're trying a new approach. The STAR Van program, short for Support Team Assisted Response. A paramedic and a mental health professional are dispatched to emergency calls where police help isn't required. Carly Salon is the STAR operations manager with Denver 911. Can you summarize how the decisions are made on what kind of call might be appropriate for the STAR Van?
So if you're experiencing a low-level behavioral health crisis or need a welfare check, or are requiring resources for someone who's unhoused in our community, they'll screen for all those situations and make sure that the scene is safe, and then STAR will be dispatched to that location.
Chris Richardson is with the Mental Health Center of Denver.
Historically, we've always sent police, paramedics, or fire to everything, and as community needs kind of continue to develop and be different as we move on in years. I think having a behavioral health response is just an added component to the crisis response.
How are you?
I'm okay. How
Sharyl
are you?
Attkisson. The STAR Van is the pet project of Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin.
The program itself launched on June 1 of 2020, right in the middle of the movement that we find ourselves in post-George Floyd. Just like many police departments across the country, particularly the bigger cities, faced these types of defund, abolish, reallocate funds to something other than policing.
Some have billed Denver's Star Van as one way to replace the police amid all the controversies. But Payzan began promoting the idea for the project in 2016 when he was a police district commander. The idea came from Eugene, Oregon's CAHOOTS program, short for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. An added tool, Payzan says, but not a move to defund.
When we look at the more than 600,000 times that somebody calls 911 for a varying degree of issues, what STAR can handle, fully built out, is about 2.8% of our calls for service, a relatively small number.
As far as though, if anyone is trying to portray this as a successful defund the police effort, that's not how you see it.
Not at all. Our community wants to be safe, and defunding the police is not part of increasing public safety. Name a system that you take money away from and you get better outcomes as a result of it. Name a system.
Money was added, not taken from police to pay for the Star Van. After about 1,300 emergency calls, the $1.4 million pilot program was recently deemed a success and expanded. The morning we spent with the STAR team, they didn't have any calls to respond to. But with Denver's significant homeless population, drugs, and mental illness, advocates say there's lots of demand.
We want better outcomes for our community, and this means the individual that's in crisis having a better outcome, as well as freeing up law enforcement to address violent crime, property crime, and traffic safety. It is a win-win for everybody that's involved.
Chief Payzan says the Denver police also have a program where outreach coordinators follow up with the homeless and mentally ill. Coming up on Full Measure, lessons learned as we look toward a post-COVID future. As America attempts to pull out of its COVID nightmare, public health experts are already embarking upon lessons learned exercises. Lawrence Gostin is a professor at Georgetown University and director of the World Health Organization's Center on Global Health Law. In his new book, Global Health Security, he sets forth a blueprint for the post-COVID future.
Basically, its thesis is that we have a constant vicious cycle where we bounce between complacency and panic. So every time we have an outbreak, whether it's Ebola or polio or Zika, we panic and we throw all of our resources at it. Then when it goes away, we forget about it and we disinvest in our public health infrastructure and in our health system, in research and development, and then it just comes roaring back. And so the question is have we learned the lesson of COVID-19? So not since 1918 with the great influenza pandemic have we experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. Will we learn the lesson? Will we actually trust in science and regain our trust in public health agencies?
A lot of the issues you talk about seem to me related in part to implementation, because taxpayers, if you've been around long enough as I have, billions and billions of dollars have gone toward ongoing preparedness so that when an emergency happens, we're not running around with our hair on fire as we seem to do. How do you solve that problem?
We just had a solemn understanding of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. But from a public health point of view, there's a much more important anniversary, which is October 5th, which is the first diagnosed case of anthrax, an anthrax attack in the United States. We invested a lot in public health then, but then we hollowed it out. We disinvested. We did the same thing when influenza H1N1 came, and then we disinvested. And it turns out that we didn't invest in our public health systems the way we thought we had, and that we'd actually hollowed them out. So we have a lot of catching up to do.
In 10 years from now, if you were to look back at the period between COVID and what happened since, what would you like to see?
I would like to see us really invest in public health and safety.
Putting more money into?
I would put more money into it, more training into it, more awareness into it. I would have our public health communication in ways that are so much better than we've seen now, with all of the chaos that we've seen from the CDC and the World Health Organization and state and local health departments, and politicizing science in ways that I could never have dreamed of in all of my life. We want to trust in our scientists. We need the medicines and the vaccines that help us stay safe and secure. And we want to be a healthy, robust society where our kids go to school and we go to work and we're happy and prosperous. That can never happen unless we actually protect ourselves against Mother Nature, because what we found out is that when Mother Nature gets serious, she's a formidable force. We've seen it with climate, and now we've seen it with pathogens.
Gostin says the World Health Organization's biggest flaw during COVID-19 might have been its failure or inability to independently verify China's reporting about the virus. After a break, what's ahead next week on Full Measure? Now an update on a story we reported a few weeks back about southern border businesses hurt by the COVID shutdown. David Chung has owned a shop just a few miles from the Mexican border in Laredo, Texas for about 12 years. When we first met him, his shop had virtually no customers, and he told us he might have to close. That's because the federal government banned tourists crossing the Mexico border by car or on foot for more than 18 months, long after traffic was open to those flying into the U.S. by plane. The extended border closing cost American towns and companies an estimated $10 billion. Thousands of businesses shut their doors. In November, the federal government finally reversed its policy and opened the border to non-essential travelers. We caught up with Chung and learned he didn't close up shop. He says so far he's seeing a slight uptick in business, but sales are down 40 to 50% compared to before the border closed. Coming up next week on Full Measure, from deadly attacks by Islamic extremists at the Boston Marathon to the Fort Hood, Texas massacre, the FBI has a long string of embarrassing misses on its record.
Obviously, we're getting good information, but we're not being able to decipher how we respond to it, what's good information, what's bad information.
Why do so many advance warnings and clues seem to fall through the cracks, and what should be done to fix it? Next week on Full Measure. Until then, we'll be watching for more stories that hold powers accountable. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.